Hi guys, I'm Mike.
And I'm Stephen.
And this is F1 Fanatics. Welcome back to the Monday after race day, which means it's driver ratings day, the place where me and Stephen give the drivers a rating out of 10 for their race performance in what was yesterday's San Marino GP at Imola. Yes, we're still calling it the San Marino GP and not that Emilia Romagnola.
I'm going to call it the Italian Grand Prix.
Oh, jeez, that is throwing shapes. No.
San Marino Italian?
No. The reason that they do this is because they named it the region that Imola is in Italy. All right? That's fine because they're like, you can't have two Italian GPs.
Yeah.
That's fine. That makes complete sense. But the San Marino... why am I ranting about this? It is irrelevant. Anyway, hashtag San Marino GP. Bam, bam. Woohoo. Let's go. But anyway, Stephen's going to start proceedings off.
How are we going to rate the name of the Grand Prix?
0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. Bam! It's a Fanatics first.
Bam! Right.
Yes. Let's jump into them.
Stephen.
Albon P15. So yes, for the first time in driver ratings, we start off with Red Bull Racing. And of course, Albon. He was looking like he was going to luck into another decent result after the safety car. I think he was P6. So it was he could have done bits at the end. But Checo went flying around the outside, and then Albon span on his own account. He did a Vettel, probably a hero of his. He did a Spinala. I think he thought there was contact, but it's clear on the video footage there's no contact whatsoever. So finishing dead last, another disappointing race. And I think that's the end of his F1 career for at least next season. I can't see much hope there. And finishing P15, it was a driver error. I'm going to go 3. I want to say a 3.
Yeah, I think 3's fair. I will say on Alex, just on there, I was going back and I think I was pretty harsh on Alex because I think I saw a good tweet from Daniil. The guy's 24 and he is hounding abuse week in, week out. And look, he's been given the opportunity and that's what he signs up for. Going into top level sport, you go in for the ridicule, and with social media and stuff nowadays, that ridicule is amplified by like 1 million.
Yeah.
Like the spotlight is really intense. He's an amazing person, but his driving hasn't been good enough. And it's Red Bull. I think Red Bull probably need to take some of the flack here because they potentially ruined. Pierre Gasly's been strong enough to come back, and it looks like they're not even going to give Alex Albon the chance to come back. If Tsunoda gets the super license points, it looks like Tsunoda will get that second AlphaTauri seat.
Yeah,
and like you said there, Red Bull will not be driving with Alex Albon in the 2021 season. I cannot see it.
No.
With how his performance has been.
Marco said 2 races ago that Albon had 2 races to prove himself. And obviously he's had probably his worst 2 races of the season.
Yeah.
So I think that kind of seals it.
So look, I feel sorry for Alex because he's been put in a position that he wasn't ready for. He was promoted too early because Red Bull wanted to prove that their program works. And like going, we already know your program works. It's probably been the most successful junior academy in terms of promoting people into seats within Formula One in the past 2 decades. Of like when it's been, I know it's technically like 15 years that it's been in place since their entry into the sport. So it's been a really successful program. I don't get why they were trying to kind of force shoehorn drivers in who clearly weren't ready for it at that stage and not going, you know what, for a season or 2, we have to bite the bullet and go for a Checo or Hulkenberg. But I think we'll come on to, Checo and Hulkenberg. Well, not Hulkenberg, but Checo a little bit later on in there. But that's what I want to say on Alex.
Yes. So 3 out of 10 for him. Not a great day. I tried. Was there an incident at the start of the race? I think it was just qualifying went a bit wrong, which put him on the soft tyres, and it was never going to be a great race. And then when he had the chance to get a decent finish, it was just a driver error. Max Verstappen, on the other hand, DNF, of course. His tyre blew up. So no score for Max. Lots of debris causing problems out there because obviously Bottas got
Floor damage.
I feel like there were a couple of other people. Ocon had something caught in his brakes early doors. Max's tyre just blew up because of debris. So fun times. Was going to get P2, but no score because he's DNF.
Yeah, tough. I think he had a very good race, actually, Max. One of his best drives of the season. He really put everything on the line that he could. Unfortunately, wasn't off. Yeah. Who's next up on the list?
Next up is Haas with Grosjean in P14 and Kevin Magnussen in P.
Retired. So Kevin Magnussen, no rating, and it's tough. Look, that Haas is a horrible car to drive. But for whatever reason, it was rattling around. And I did see a little bit of criticism, I think, around on social media. And I don't get this. He wasn't competing for points, and his head was rattling around that it was giving him a headache.
It was a upshift problem.
Yeah. There was an upshift problem. Every time he upshift, it would bang his head, and it had banged his head so much that he'd got a headache in there. I don't know whose decision it was. The radio message we saw before it happened that Magnussen was like, it's my job, I'll get on with it.
Yeah.
You know, type of thing. And thankfully, if it was someone at Haas took that decision to go, no, let's retire the race. Because anything to do with the head, like, is major. You know, not even just like short-term concussions, long-term in terms of like neurological things like dementia and stuff. Like, it's quite serious to just pound your head from there. And there was nothing on the line.
No.
Magnussen wasn't competing for points. So, yeah, retiring from the race. So no ratings. So I didn't get any kind of criticism of that. I thought it was fair and unlucky for Magnussen on that front. Grosjean drove a decent race, I think.
Actually, a point on Magnussen, lap 28. My favourite lap of the race.
Oh my God, yes. Yes, that is a big one.
It. Magnussen's battle with Leclerc, and then who came trying to fly up the outside? Was that Kvyat and Albon?
There was Albon, yeah, and Kvyat.
And it was just great seeing a Haas fight people going two by two at Imola.
And I think he defended against Ricciardo, defended against Leclerc, but they both got passed.
Yeah.
Defended against Albon, and Albon didn't get passed until Magnussen actually pitted.
Yes.
And, you know, if anyone needs some footage to kind of question whether Magnussen is good enough to drive an F1 or not, I think that's pretty good footage.
Lap 28.
In a horrible car, his defending skills and on-track racing ability, wheel-to-wheel racing, people saying that he weren't dangerous at all. He was just fantastic wheel-to-wheel racing. And that was probably the best wheel-to-wheel action racing of the race.
Yes, that's why I remember it.
Correct. Bang, bang. Brilliant on that front. But yeah, Kevin Magnussen there. Roman Grosjean got 5-second penalty at the end. Wasn't sure what that was. Was it? I couldn't remember what that was. So difficult, tough got 5 out of 10 for Grosjean with a 5-second penalty. Keep it 5-5.
Yep.
I don't think it was awful.
5-5.
Yeah. 5-second penalty, 5 out of 10 rating.
Wow, people would be going for 10-second time penalties to get 10.
Yeah. No, that works the opposite way.
That's Haas done.
Yep.
On to Racing Point with Lance Stroll P13, an absolute mare of a race. He had contact with Ocon at the start, which put him at the back, had to replace his front wing, and just couldn't make any progress. Probably a bit rusty still, because he's had a really bad run of races where he's been missing races or retiring from races.
Yeah, the last 3 races. So he missed it due to illness turning out to be COVID-19. Then the Portuguese Grand Prix was just turning in on corners and just wasn't aware of what was going around. And then this one, yeah, again, probably putting his nose in a compromised position.
Remember, before the Nürburgring, lap 1 at Sochi got taken out. So
yeah,
really.
So But that one was less unfortunate, I would say. I would say that was all Charles Leclerc's fault. And Leclerc was lucky to get away with a racing incident on that one. But it's first lap, so you can do anything on a first lap.
Freaky.
But yeah, so this one he compromised his front wing, and he just, I don't know, he just doesn't look like
I think it was a bit
back with it.
A bit the track, because Imola showed it was very difficult to overtake, even with the DRS. DRS wasn't really strong at all.
No.
And I think it was the track and a bit rusty. Really poor performance from Stroll, 4 out of 10. And then Checo, on the other hand, robbed of a podium in P6 in the end. P3 was there. And Racing Point was like, let's pit onto softs. And he's for the whole race. It was obvious that track position was better than tyre performance. The whole race. And they sacrificed track position for tyre performance. And yes, maybe he could have done better off the restart. He only made up 1 position. But still, it was an easy podium. And even if everyone else pitted behind him, then you just pit the following lap. And he still stays in P3.
Yeah, he wouldn't have lost a massive amount of time in terms of that because of the time it would have taken in the pit stop for the others. They wouldn't have bunched up in that time.
Exactly. And
that he would have lost it out.
Yes. And it was a fantastic drive. It was a massive... He started in classic Checo P11, did a massive overcut on his first stint, and that put him into the podium positions after Max's debacle. It was a fantastic ride for Checo. He's really pulling these drives out the bag. Keeps getting unlucky at the end of the race. Again, I'm going to go for a 9 out of 10.
I would have given him 10. I thought he was. You could say maybe 9 out of 10 because he didn't make up those positions at the end. But I think the way that he's driven it, that overcut, I thought he was a 10 and he's got let down by his team.
Yes. You could argue otherwise. I'm going for a 9. You could argue a 10.
In terms of that, for me, I don't know that there's politics, and we'll come on to it with Ferrari because Ferrari looked dodgy on the pit stop with Vettel as well. But, you know, Racing Point, I don't know if it's good. There's been too many incidents this year. I was kind of drawn to people, and I think Lance Stroll has had some dodgy calls. Like, whatever's been going on in the pit wall at Racing Point this season, they just haven't been on it on their decisions. And I think I even tweeted it that I feel like it's gone as far as sabotage on this front. Because I don't get why. I don't know if they need to save face because Lance Stroll has had a bad race. And especially at the start of the season, Lance Stroll wasn't on it compared to Checo. But, you know, I think the massively glaringly obvious ones, the Austria race 1 and yesterday's race, were such poor decisions that you go, there isn't an argument for why it made sense for what they did. No. Everyone pitted in the situation on Austria race 1 and he was left exposed on massively worn tyres. Then he had fresher tyres than everyone else. And like Stephen said, even if the others chose to pit, if he didn't pit, you know, he could be the one that could afford to react because he was the one in front. Yeah. You react and you cover off in front. The team didn't need to take a risk. They had P3 and they blew it. Yep. And it feels like they've massively let Checo down. And the way he stood by the team, even in a post-race interview, you know, it was incredible, the professionalism and manner of Checo, and he really deserved better for that race yesterday. He's the only driver in the top 10 in the point standings who hasn't got a podium this year, and he definitely deserves a podium for his performances and drives, considering the positions that he's been in. Yeah.
And that decision not only cost Checo a podium, but also cost Racing Point third in the driver constructor standings. So yeah, a day to forget. 9 out of 10 for Checo, and what did we give Lance? 4 out of 10, didn't we?
Yeah. 4 out of 10.
There we go. On to the next team, which is Ferrari. Sebastian P12 and Leclerc P7, I want to say. It's in fact P5, of course.
Charles Leclerc doing what Charles Leclerc does. Fantastic driving that Ferrari. For what he is, it's not the same. Everyone's behind Team Charles at Ferrari. 9 out of 10 drive. Again, for him, just he's getting performances out of that Ferrari there. His teammate Sebastian Vettel, and there have been instances where you could criticise Sebastian Vettel for the way that he's driven this year, and that comes a little bit in confidence of the car, but the team massively let him down. Sebastian Vettel was on for a points finish. He'd driven absolutely superbly.
Well, he would have finished P9 at least.
At least in the end on that front. He had driven actually he would have come out in front of Norris.
So P8.
They worked out. So it would have been P8. Whether he'd been able to hold on to it, probably. In terms of the McLarens, again, didn't seem to have much race pace or anything really to challenge with. But yeah, massively let down on the pit stops. I think a few of the conspiracy theorists were out in terms of whether it was deliberate. I think a few people looked and hadn't really seen the main critical error in the pit stop that caused it to be so slow. If there's one team that I would believe conspiracy theories against sabotaging a driver because Sebastian Vettel did humiliate them, there you go, it would be Ferrari.
Because there's president.
Because there's president before. We always use that example of Alain Prost is the most high profile one of it. Criticises the car, gets sacked from Ferrari, a 3-time world champion at that stage. So, you know, they're not afraid to do it. If you criticise the Ferrari name and you're on the way out the door anyway and going to what would be a rival in the future in Aston Martin, especially where they are currently are Ferrari, you ain't going to be included in the circle there. And it's a real shame for Sebastian Vettel. So I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I thought it was a brilliant drive. It's difficult to go where he would have done it. It would have been higher, I think, for that one. But 7 out of 10 for Sebastian Vettel's performance.
Yeah, there we go. Ferrari, bam, bam, bam.
Bam, bam, bam!
On to Williams. Oh, we nearly had a first point for both drivers. Nicholas Latifi in P11 was finishing agonisingly close to P10. I'll come on to George in a second, but Latifi, pretty solid drive from Latifi. He's finished ahead of Sebastian, although we know Sebastian had the big problem. He's finished ahead of Grosjean and he's finished ahead of Albon and Stroll. So actually a very decent result for Latifi in P11 and so close to points. It's just the track, difficult to overtake. He didn't have enough laps at the end. But I'm going to go for I could even go for an 8 out of 10 for Latifi. It's difficult.
I think 8 out of 10 is fair.
Because it is P11, I just feel like no, I'll go out of 10. It was actually a very good drive from Latifi. Okay. But George, it's a no score because he's crashed out. But what? Another point scoring position and it's gone. And this time it was completely George's fault. I
hope George Russell doesn't become the Nico Hülkenberg of points finishing. And podiums.
Just points finishes.
So.
Jeez. You felt, I know it would have been a struggle for George at the end to hold off both the Alfa Romeos, but you think he would have been able to do it. And I can't really say much more. You gotta feel bad for the guy, but he's mucked up under safety car, so you can't really feel bad for him. Yeah. It's completely his own fault.
It's a driver mistake. They happen. It was quite nice actually. I saw, George was really hard on himself. You could see he was completely dejected from there. Sent out a tweet going, he's so sorry he's let the whole team down completely. He doesn't deserve that because we know how talented George is, and it was quite a nice touch from Lewis Hamilton. Going, we know how good you are. I've made plenty of mistakes and things. They happen. It doesn't feel good today, but chin up, son. Get on with it.
Yeah, I think Roman Grosjean also made a nice comment.
It is so tough as a driver, and especially it's so tough for a team like Williams, being so far away from it. There is such high pressure in that position going on it. I imagine that car is so difficult to get any sort of performance out of. And George had driven out of his skin up until that point. It was a 10 out of 10 performance from George.
The Williams
up until
was
that
looking
stage.
competitive.
Yeah. But, oh man, it is so tough. So tough.
But there we go.
Now Williams Alfa Romeo up next?
Yes, the double Alpha, 10 and 9. Double
Gio,
points finish.
in his third home Grand Prix of the season. Confirmed for the 2021 season. Up the Gio!
Up the Gio!
I don't know. He's had a good performance finishing the points.
Yep.
8 out of 10 for Giovinazzi and for Kimi at Imola.
Kimi at Imola.
Yeah, Imola.
Nice.
That was for you, Katie. You told me to kind of put that one into the driver ratings. Again, Kimi Raikkonen drove an unbelievable first stint on that.
He went to like 49, 50, didn't
he? Yeah, on the medium compound, which was mental. And then I think he did finish the race on the softs as well. Finishing ahead of teammate Giovinazzi. What more can you say? Imola.
9 for P9?
It's 9 for P9. It is a better performance. It was a 9 out of 10 performance. Kimi, another great performance. And you know what? In a week that both drivers have received criticism for being kept within the team and within sport, I think that's just the performance. Yes, obviously there's fortunate stuff with retirements and mistakes, Stroll, Albon. But they've taken advantage of the situation and they drove bloody well. And I thought it was fantastic drives for both of them, considering the vehicles that they're in. And as we've seen from other drivers, it was quite easy to kind of crash out or, car performance not to be there. And they made it. They made it through to the end.
Yes. And I think Gio had another great start. I think he made up 6 positions on the first lap.
Yeah, he did. He had a fantastic start because Crofty had something. Is there anyone to watch from the start? It's Antonio Giovinazzi. Yeah. I go, or Magnussen.
Yeah, I think Lance Stroll, Magnussen will have a word with you.
Or Carlos Sainz.
Yeah.
A few of them, then.
Kimi Raikkonen at Portimao. But yes, on to Alfa Romeo done. On to double McLaren, P8 and P7 for Norris and Sainz. Race pace just wasn't there. I feel like I want to give them both 7 out of 10s. Even though Sainz has beat Norris, maybe I give Sainz an 8, but an 8 for P... No. I just...
8 for P7?
He did overtake Lando. Okay, I'll give Sainz an 8 and Norris a 7. But yeah, it was just a bit of a meh day for McLaren. The race pace just isn't there. We keep thinking it's going to come back, but it's just not there.
Yeah, I'm not being funny. McLaren have had a really... not poor, because they're still competing for third in constructors. And Renault and Racing Point are struggling to get both of their cars to finish.
The only reason they're in that powerful third is because Renault and Racing Point are just having one car finish every race.
Yeah. if Racing Point and Renault had been doing what their cars were capable of, they should have been going in third. Yeah. And I think it's surprised a lot of people. A lot of people thought McLaren would kind of walk away with it when that third was very apparent it was up for grabs from Ferrari. But yeah, it just hasn't quite worked out. And we've spoken about it a bit before. I think it is a little bit the driver feedback and development of the car. Maybe focus is switched to 2022 regulations already because they're like going, realistically, it's not a massive difference, third or fourth for us. Maybe fifth. Being in that top 5 of the constructors is still a very good effort for them. And hey, it's coming back to the top in 2022. That's what they're all hoping for. And Racing Point and Renault have both had drivers with something to prove in Ricciardo and Perez, where Norris and Sainz are quite comfortable probably in their own aspects. Norris knows he's got a long-term future at McLaren, and Sainz is going to Ferrari, and he's performed to a decent standard.
Yeah.
He's done all he can do.
Well, he had that fantastic P2 in Monza, but it all went downhill from there. Especially for Sainz, because he's been struggling to finish a race. But yes, that's McLaren. 7 for Norris, 8 for Sainz. On to, of course, not Racing Point, not Ferrari, but AlphaTauri with Kvyat and P4 and Gasly, the early retiree.
Gasly, heartbreaking, unfortunately. It's gone so well this weekend. He's become everyone's favourite driver suddenly with his performances this year in AlphaTauri. Because everyone, let's be honest, everyone loves a good comeback story. And Pierre Gasly has been the best comeback story in F1 over the past 2 or 3 years. Everyone had written off his career after 6 months at Red Bull, expect him to do nothing. Got a podium in Brazil at the back end of the 2019 season, and he really hasn't looked back at any point in 2020. He's been superb, and you know, if he had got where he probably would have been in the podium position, realistically.
Yeah, because it was ahead of Kvyat.
Correct, if his car had made it to the end, so it was potentially another podium on the cards for Pierre Gasly, and it would have taken him ahead of Alex Albon, a Red Bull car in the championship, which would be incredible for one of the sister team cars to have done that. Daniil Kvyat, 10 out of 10.
Yep.
I think brilliant drive from the Russian, and we know Alex from AS19, big supporter of Kvyat, was like, where's the Kvyat hype? Here's the Kvyat hype. Brilliant drive from him, has to be said. Qualified, obviously by qualifying behind Gasly, you know, his performances went under the radar, and Gasly was the guy, obviously, everyone's drawn attention to. But Daniil Kvyat, in a weekend that Helmut Marko pretty much confirmed that he won't be in F1 next year, because it doesn't look like Kvyat's going to be picked up by anybody else's team in some situation. Mercedes with Lewis Hamilton.
Well, the thing is, if Yuki Tsunoda doesn't get a super license, it's either him or Albon for the AlphaTauri team.
Yeah, and at this stage, they'd go Albon, because they'd go invest in a future. Albon's very popular. He just hasn't performed.
Well, I don't think it's as clear cut. I think there's some rumours that Kvyat could be the preferred choice over Albon at this point.
Well, Kvyat on ability should be that, because everyone forgets Kvyat's one of these drivers, mid-level drivers, a bit like Magnussen, where they kind of get forgotten about, and their ability is like, oh, they're okay. Yeah. They're nothing. Where Kvyat actually is a very good driver. And out of Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon and Kvyat, he was actually the one who performed the best out of the Red Bull, and has been the one who's been harshly treated by Red Bull and pummeled by that program. So if there's anyone who you should be feel outraged by how Red Bull have treated, it should be Daniil Kvyat. And this drive getting P4, and he was close. He was fighting Ricciardo for that podium position. He actually made the change to softs work at the end.
Yeah, because he was behind Checo, so he's overtaken Checo and Albon into turn 1, and then he's caught Leclerc and overtaken him, and then was pushing for a podium at the end.
Yeah, which it was just a fantastic drive from Daniil Kvyat with so much against him. And he's one of those drivers that just can't catch a break. And I really hope that he goes into a series and excels, because I think Daniil Kvyat is a fantastic racing driver who doesn't get given enough credit that he deserves.
Yeah.
All right.
There we go. On to...
Well, you know who's coming up? Renault.
Bam. Ocon, bit of a disaster. Not for himself. I mentioned earlier, I'm pretty sure he had debris in his brakes again. I think it happened early in the season, which meant he had to do an early pit stop. Something failed on Ocon's car, and so bam, no score. Bam, just like his car nearly did. But Ricciardo, on the other hand, P3, his second podium for Renault, did a shoey on the podium, made Lewis do a shoey on the podium, is a 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Just for the shoeys.
Just for the shoeys alone. But
9 out of 10 for his racing.
His driving was decent as well. He didn't put a single foot wrong. Did get overcut by Checo, but that's when they got held up by Kevin Magnussen, because Imola is a difficult track to overtake on, whereas Checo had more clean air. But it was a faultless performance from Ricciardo. Got the podium in the end. Held off Kvyat. Fantastic.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
There's not much to add. It was just 10 out of 10 performance from Ricciardo.
Yeah.
We've got used to seeing it.
Yeah. And now the final team, as always, it's Mercedes, and that falls on me. We start off with Valtteri Bottas, and today we've been very harsh. We've been very critical of Valtteri Bottas. But you know what? I actually think Bottas is damn unlucky.
This race, yes.
This race. Got damage to his floor from that. Did fantastically well keeping up Max Verstappen. He locked up, but that car clearly, was having some massive performance issues, and the team was saying he's doing a fantastic job just to keep Max behind him. And obviously Max then had the failure that, Bottas inherited P2 again. But, he was fighting desperately to keep the lead. And, with Valtteri Bottas, there have been incidents this year that when they both had the tyre failures at Silverstone that led to Valtteri finishing outside the points at Silverstone, and Lewis Hamilton still managed to win the race, coming in home on 3 wheels. And in this incident, when the virtual safety car comes out at the ideal time to clear Ocon's car, literally it was almost like it was choreographed for the perfect time for Lewis to come in, because as he left the pit stops, the virtual safety car ended. But Cranky Yankee, the stato nerd, Mr. Numbers himself, was saying that Lewis is hammer time in the laps that he'd put in, and it was said on commentary that he was going 7/10 quicker, 3/10 quicker than Max or whatever in the performance, that he would have come out ahead anyway.
Well, you think with that floor damage on Bottas, he was always going to win the race.
It was inevitable, but it would have been interesting if Lewis had come out behind and not that virtual safety car. It would have been interesting to see a 3-way fight, and
could have Max done so? Well,
obviously, the virtual safety car killed it.
Yeah,
essentially, and it then brings up the argument: should you be allowed to pit under virtual safety cars? Is it too much of an advantage? Does it have too much impact on a race where it's meant to be a safety measure, not something that's a tactical advantage to cars on track? That's an interesting debate, probably for another day. But look, Valtteri Bottas, I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 because it's difficult, because he still made a mistake on track, but how much that was down to the damage or how much that was down to his driving ability. It was a day that didn't fall this way, but obviously we've been giving him 3s, 2s, whatever, recently. So 7 out of 10. Lewis Hamilton, 9 out of 10. I don't know. The virtual safety car, if he'd got out ahead without the virtual safety car, it probably would be a 10 out of 10.
Easy 10 out of 10.
So I don't know. It's kind of a 9.5, because I'm going to go with 9 because I don't know whether he would have come out ahead. The numbers suggest that he probably would have, but I'm pretty sure that we've got numbers suggest that they should have before and they haven't actually come out in front. So it's going to be a 9 out of 10. But again, Lewis, in a weekend that it didn't necessarily go his way, not getting pole, hadn't ever driven on this race, had a poor start behind Max Verstappen, was running P3, went longer on the tyres, made that issue work. He somehow finds a way to win. And that's just what Lewis Hamilton is, a relentless winner. And Imola was a prime example of that, that despite a race not going perfectly for Lewis Hamilton, he's found a way to win.
Yeah.
Bar obviously the perfect virtual safety car.
Win number 93.
Incredible. It will be 100 win. Well, that's probably something for the F1 podcast to discuss, because I think post-race interview he is like, there's no guarantee he'll drive for Mercedes. Everyone expects it, but, Lewis is getting things in his life that I think are more of a priority to him than maybe racing is now.
Yeah, I heard maybe that AlphaTauri seat is looking tempting. I heard that Haas seat is looking tempting for him.
Absolutely. But that's it. That's driver ratings done. That's our thoughts on it. Let's hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you're new around here or haven't done so already, Stephen,
you can like, subscribe, and ding that bell.
Ding it. That's it from us today, guys. So for now, you F1 fans, keep racing.